Welcome everyone. Just want to let you know you are in the right spot. You have Jamie Weiss with Audubon Rockies and Aaron Michael with Earth Love Gardens for our featured presentation today on sustainable gardening. Welcome. I hope you all are doing well and staying safe. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll just give it one minute. I pulled up the agenda so hopefully you're able to see that. We'll kick it off here in a minute with some housekeeping and background information on who we are with Audubon Rockies and our Habitat Hero program. And then I'll introduce Aaron Michael with Earth Love Gardens and his featured presentation on sustainable gardening today. Throughout the presentation, feel free to send your questions to me through the chat box, and we'll have a Q&A session at the end. And we'll wrap it up at the end with some closing remarks and share with you some upcoming events that we have. We'll just give it another second. We have about 85 people so far who've joined and a few more people in the waiting room. I'll invite those folks in and start recording today's presentation. Wonderful. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us. For those of you who are just joining us this week, welcome. And for those joining us week after week, I enjoy seeing your familiar faces. This is actually our 7th Habitat Hero weekly webinar. We've had a great lineup so far, and we have more coming up in the next few weeks. So just as a quick reminder for our housekeeping rules, all your phone lines have automatically been muted, but you can still type questions or comments to me in the chat box. The comments and questions will come just to me and won't bombard or distract the other participants today. We are recording today's presentation, and I will send a post-event recap email, which will include the recording link and any pertinent information or resources that we talk about today, including Aaron Michael's presentation. And then with Zoom bombing, we haven't had any issues, but I just like to bring light of it. We put in a lot of security measures for the registration process and then when we set up today's presentation. But if anything, any obscene remarks or a Zoom bomber hacks in, I'll do my best to remove them as quickly as possible. And during that time, you can certainly just block your camera or mute your phone lines, and we'll get that situation remedied as quickly as possible. But with that, I want to give a little background information on who we are at Audubon Rockies and the Habitat Hero program, and tying that into our featured presentation today on sustainable gardening. So with Audubon Rockies, we're a regional office of National Audubon, and we protect birds and their habitats today and tomorrow and into the future. And we cover 3 states with all of our 6 core programs. We cover Colorado, Wyoming, and Utah. And Habitat Hero is one of those 6 core programs, which is all about planting a better world for birds and people. And these individuals, you all, are Habitat Heroes, and you're doing 3 positive things. You're creating habitat for our birds and pollinators. You are providing them with great nesting sites and places to breed. And then the third and most important piece is you're creating these small habitat patches that connect to the overall landscape. So you're helping to stitch back our landscape quite literally one garden at a time. And we empower engagement through a variety of platforms across the 3 states. A big thing that we do is our educational programming. You know, we've converted all of our events right now online, but we certainly do have in-person events during different times of the year. And we have, between 70 and 75 events each year, reaching 3,000 plus people each year. We also have a certification process. You can see in this photograph here, someone displaying their all-weather garden sign. This is in Fort Collins, Colorado. And you get rewarded for your gardening efforts. And Aaron will even mention today about how you can use his services to certify and have a pre-planned Habitat Hero garden through Earth Love Gardens, since he's well versed in our program. We also have a great volunteer network that come out and help with planting events or maintaining our demonstration gardens, being featured on garden tours, or giving presentations in the community, or manning tabling and outreach events. So lots of ways to get your hands dirty. 158 volunteers helped us out last year. We also have a robust online resource library. I'll share that link with you here in a second and share with you some tips on how we really revamped that webpage to make it easier for you to learn about and how to create your bird-friendly or habitat hero garden. And then stay tuned with us. We have a social media platform on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, have a strong presence there. And that's also a great place, along with our newsletter, to stay abreast of all of our programs as well. As mentioned, here's the link that we just revamped, rockies.audubon.org/habitat hero. And it's a 5-step process to help you on your Habitat Hero certification. We've compiled some great articles that really showcase how and why native plants are beneficial to our birds and pollinators. You can search for native plants near you via the zip code search tool. We also have pre-planned garden designs available, or you can use Aaron Michael, who will talk a little bit about his company today, Earth Love Gardens, and create your customized gardens. And then the official last step is certifying your Habitat Hero garden and getting certified either at a bronze, silver, or a gold level. So that's just a very, very quick background on who we are at Audubon Rockies and the Habitat Hero program. But we're really excited to have Aaron Michael join us. He's been a great supporter of the Habitat Hero program now for, oh goodness, over a year. He spoke for us at our big climate conference, and he helped with the design and planting efforts at our largest demonstration garden with over 3,000 plants in Longmont at Jack's Solar Garden. And a little bit more about him too, let me pull up his bio. But he was inspired to create Earth Love Gardens through the connection found in our food and community. For food, a solution was needed, as in Colorado, it gets too cold to grow for half of the year. Thus, Earth Love Gardens started offering mini greenhouses, and it was an instant hit. Now people can grow their food longer and in the right conditions even year-round. It was soon discovered that garden beds and cold frames were just a feature in one of your entire landscape. Though the standard to always be environmentally friendly, Earth Love Gardens transforms entire landscapes into edible and pollinator-friendly and water-saving gardens that positively affect our local community and the entire world even. Earth Love Gardens continues to create a life where we live in harmony with the earth, thus creating a life of authenticity and joy. So it's a great company that we are proud to partner with at Audubon Rockies, and we're excited to have Aaron join us for his feature presentation. So with that, Aaron, I will stop sharing my screen and I will let you, as the star of the show, take over and pull up your presentation, and just want to say thank you all for joining us again.
Thank you, Jamie, for this opportunity. And it's great to see everybody, recognize a few names, Dinej and some others. So today I'm going to be talking about sustainable gardening, and I'm very happy to be partners with the Audubon Rockies. It's a great stepping stone in the goal of connecting all of us to the higher connection of being connected with the earth to enjoy the benefits of such. So with that, I'm going to share different practices about sustainable gardening. First, I'm going to talk about vegetable gardening, and then I'm going to talk about general practices that work for vegetable gardening and ornamental gardening, as well as pollinator gardening. And I'm going to touch up on some pollinator practices. And you'll see they all work well together for a very happy landscape and a very happy world. So.
And then Aaron, for you to pull up, oh good, you got the screen shared, perfect.
As Jamie was saying, we're partners with the Audubon Rockies, and very happy to be. And this, again, is a great way to share our great mission. And our mission is to connect people of all walks of life all around the world with the earth. Because I was finding, before creating Earth Love Gardens, that people were not appreciating Earth to the full extent as they could. So Earth Love Gardens was born to help facilitate all this in the right direction. Earth Love Gardens is in our third season, and we love to work with homes, communities, businesses, and organizations. And we provide everything you need to start gardening and growing your own food, as well as starting your own pollinator garden. We also create hoop houses to extend your growing season and allow you to grow year-round. As you see in the background here, these are some of the garden beds and hoop houses that we made. So part of Earth Love Gardens is I love all the benefits of gardening. It has so many benefits. If everybody gardened, there would be world peace. Some benefits include being out in nature and enjoying your property to its fullest. You increase your mood by being outside, touching the soil, and more. And it's a great way to get stress relief and increases your self-esteem. You get better heart health and reduction in stroke risk. It's a good form of exercise. It's a great reason to get out of the house, especially these days. One thing I want to touch up on is about the soil. Some of you may know that soil has a microbial bacteria in it, which raises cytokine levels in your body, which then produce a higher level of serotonin. Serotonin, of course, acts as an antidepressant. In a study done with rats, the effects of this were an increased cognitive ability, lowered stress, and better concentration on tasks. So gardeners inhale the bacteria from the soil and have skin contact with it. Also from the study, the soil bacteria antidepressant effects could be felt for up to 3 weeks. So get out and play in the dirt and improve your mood and your life. Also, gardening improves your immune regulation. It lowers depression and anxiety and increases your general mental health. It lowers Alzheimer's and dementia risk. It's a healthy activity for children and creates memories. You get vitamin D from the sun. The food that you grow is so much tastier than food you get anywhere else, and you get so many fresh nutrients. And another thing I like to share about gardening is the concept of grounding, which is when you take your shoes off when you garden, or generally just be outside and have your feet make contact with the grass or the soil. There have been studies done that actually prove this, that just by having your shoes off and standing outside, you can greatly reduce your cortisol levels, your white blood cell count becomes at a healthier level, and your pain tolerance goes up. So being in the season, I get asked a lot of when should I plant things? Well, for this, I live in zone 5B, and many of you also live in 5B. Some of you may live in zone 6, some of you may live in zone 5A. Generally, the recommendations I'm going to make here will fit you, and you can check online to see what your zone actually is. So for 5B, the growing season is from approximately between the last spring frost, which is on May 9th, and the first fall frost, which is October 1st. Without season extension, this is a 144-day growing season. So when should I plant this? Can I plant this season? Yes, you can. You're not too late. In fact, you can start planting for the next few months. For example, in June, you can still plant potatoes, sweet potatoes, summer squash, carrots, cucumbers, and beans. You can keep waiting because in July, you can grow winter squash, potato, corn, beans, and in late July, you can grow lettuce. In August, you can grow lettuce, broccoli, beets, carrots, kale, spinach. And this is because as the weather starts to cool down a bit, these plants love cooler weather, so you can take advantage of that. Companion planting is a wonderful way to make the most use of your garden. And it's very cool when you have a very abundant garden that acts as an edible food forest. Some components of companion planting include shade regulation, such as kale and lettuce like to be in the shade. One client actually is growing kale and lettuce right now under a tree, and it's wonderful how it's not too hot, and the lettuce is loving it. The large plants provide shade for smaller plants in need of sun protection. So you can put your tomatoes in the front, which cast shadow on the lettuce in the back, and all the plants are happy. Natural supports. Tall plants like corn and sunflowers can support lower growing sprawling crops like cucumbers and peas. If you've heard of the Three Sisters concept, this is this in action. Improve plant health. When one plant absorbs certain substances from the soil, it may change the soil biochemistry in favor of nearby plants. And healthy soil. You can make your soil healthier by some crops such as beans and peas help to make nitrogen more available in your soil. Similarly, plants with long taproots like burdock bring up nutrients from deep in the soil, enriching the topsoil to the benefit of shallow-rooted plants. And also weed suppression. Planting sprawling crops like potatoes along upright plants minimizes open areas where weeds typically take hold, and you get a beautiful garden. So, a companion planting guide. I want to make note that, as Jamie was saying, you will have access to this webinar afterwards, so you can use it as a handy reference. So you don't have to record everything by paper, because you can always go back to it. Example of companion planting is beans with corn, cabbage, and cucumber. You can grow your beets with beans, onions, garlic, lettuce, and cabbage. Kale, broccoli, cabbage, and cauliflower grow well around aromatic plants like sage, dill, and rosemary, and they grow well around potatoes, garlic, celery, and onions. Carrots grow well around lettuce, leeks, chives, rosemary, sage, and peas. And lettuce grows well around carrots, cucumber, radish, and beans. The list continues. And again, you can refer back to this webinar for future reference. And what I love about vegetables is eventually you run out. There are only a certain amount, there are a lot, but once you know these facts, you know them for life, and you can share it with everybody that you meet, and this is great information to know. So, as creating garden beds is a service of Earthflow Gardens, I love that we make it easy for people to start growing their own food, and we're able to carry out our mission of having people connect with Earth very easily. The soil in Colorado is not ideal for growing vegetables, as it's mostly clay. Garden beds remedy that, so you can get right to growing. Benefits include you don't have to till, amend, or do hard work. Growing directly in the ground requires soil amendments and natural fertilizers, which take a lot of work and money. And with garden beds, you can get right to growing. Not tilling is also better for your soil, and you can also grow within your xeriscaped rocks. Other benefits include it's easier on your body, with much less strain in your back and joints. It's an investment for your health. And at over 2 feet tall, they can keep out rabbits. They provide better water drainage and prevent flooding. If there's ever like a flood in your backyard and it washes things away, your tall garden bed will prevent your food from getting destroyed. And fewer weeds and crabgrasses grow. Weeds and crabgrasses, if they do grow, you just pull them out, and they have to make the long, hard, arduous journey to re-root themselves back in your garden bed. So they prefer not to do that, so your garden bed usually will always be clear. Plus, you can plant earlier and grow later in the season. With the better drainage, frost is reduced and plants are able to overwinter. And they're beautiful. They add to your landscape and make your property work for you. These are examples of garden beds that we made for happy clients who love them. And I want to share that when we do create garden beds, we focus on them being as sustainable and high quality as possible. On the contrary, woods like pine and Douglas fir are less expensive, but likely will last less than 10 years, making you have to redo your garden again. The best woods for garden beds are redwood and cedar. Cedar is better when it's stained, as strains of the cedar start to jut out, and cedar requires this occasional maintenance to keep it in top condition. For redwood, stain actually encourages rot, so it's better to keep it unstained. Our choice wood for garden beds is redwood. Plus, redwood is very beautiful in your garden, and in our dry climate should last you a very long time. Also, when we do create garden beds, we include locally produced soil and compost. And each garden bed also includes steel corner brackets that go on the inside of each corner to prevent the wood from blowing out, as you see many other garden beds do. And we can install them on your grass or in the rocks in our landscape. And we completely remove that grass or move away the rocks so the plants in your garden bed can root down into your native soil if necessary. Our standard size is a large 8 feet by 4 feet, and the average arm is about 2 feet long, so this dimension maximizes your space. We can make all different custom lengths, widths, and heights. Season extension. So I'm from Florida, where you can grow year-round. Moving to Colorado, I noticed that you can grow for less than half of the year, about 44% of the year to be exact. With season extension, you can grow leafy greens into December, and during the spring, you can begin in early March. This brings the gardening season to about 67% of the year, about a 50% increase in the output and value of your garden. And things like lettuce, you can grow in the winter as long as the weather is above 45 degrees on some days. And with a little heater, you can grow year round. So how does season extension work? One example is through hoop houses. The hoop house is essentially a mini greenhouse for your garden. Frost is what prevents you from growing more in our climate. With hoop houses, your vegetables are protected from frost. If you want to supplement heating for your hoop house, you can add black water bottles to passively heat the inside or use a heater to provide temperature control. This is a picture of one of our happy clients who loves her hoop house, and she actually lives on a mesa, so she gets constant high winds. So hoop houses are great for high wind environments. And I want to point out that we also used to create cold frames, however, found that hoop houses are more ideal in almost every way. Hoop houses have the advantage in allowing you to grow much taller plants than in cold frame, and a cold frame always has affixed walls, limiting the horizontal growth of plants. In a hoop house, the fabric is lifted and rolled up to the top during the hotter months, allowing more space for your plants to grow and proper airflow. Also, hoop houses do a better job in the wind, like you see here. And also the price of a hoop house is about half that of a cold frame, so you get a lot of value out of it, which is why we love to share them with people. So as I was saying, I'm from Florida, and coming to Colorado, I found that there wasn't a good solution for season extension. There were products on the market that were 3-season extenders, or that they weren't that great for the hail. So I had a solution that would be perfect for our Colorado climate, which was my Earth Love Gardens hoop house, which features a 3/4-inch steel frame, 12 mil hail, wind, and UV resistant fabric. Typical greenhouse fabrics, plastics are only 4 to 6 mil. So this is double and triple the insulation value. Plus, those plastics only last about 1 to 4 years, while this fabric, the manufacturer says it should last at least 7 years. It includes stainless steel vents, real greenhouse clamps, and we can custom fit it to fit your new or existing garden beds or in-ground beds. And I know hail is a huge deal in Colorado, and many gardeners scramble for a solution. I found one through our hoop house. If you lower your hoop house about halfway, it acts as a shelter for hail above your garden and provides proper airflow, like you see in the top left picture here. So what are great crops for a hoop house? Some include beets, broccoli, cabbage, carrots, lettuce, onion, peas, spinach, and more. One client who loves her hoop house grows her peppers in May. This is otherwise unheard of in Colorado, and you can see the pictures right here. Pollinator plants. As Earth Love Gardens also creates Audubon Rockies Habitat Hero pollinator gardens, it's important to use these pollinator gardens to work with your vegetable garden, as it's all a interconnected system. Many fruits and vegetables require pollinators. Pollinators include bumblebees, other native bees, honeybees, butterflies, moths, flies, hummingbirds. For example, Bumblebees pollinate tomatoes, eggplants, peppers, squashes, gourds, watermelons, cucumbers, strawberries, beans, and fruit trees. Uh, in the background is a zucchini flower, and you can see the bee pollinating it. You can attract bumblebees with wildflowers, sunflowers, lupine, clover, and vetch. Native bees include mason bees, leafcutter bees, digger bees, and more, and these pollinate the above plants as well as other plants. And in addition to those above, you can also attract them with buckwheat, alfalfa, and others. Butterflies and moths pollinate brightly colored flowers and spread pollen from flower to flower as they probe its nectar. You can attract them with zinnias, coneflowers, daisies, marigolds, and wildflower mixes. Flowers that are open during the night attract pollinator moths. And flies are actually beneficial. They pollinate peppers, strawberries, caneberries, grapes, stone fruits such as peaches and cherries, pears, apples, fennel, caraway, beets, carrots, celery, and you can further attract them with buckwheat, chamomile, parsley, yarrow, and more. Hummingbirds. In addition to pollinating, they keep your garden in balance by eating aphids, mosquitoes, gnats, and other small insects. You can attract them with colorful flowers, and especially those that are red and that are tubular. Hummingbirds also appreciate a bird bath and sheltered perches for rest. Here are some smart gardening practices. Instead of throwing away your food, compost it. And also there are city collection systems. Compost it instead of setting it away. You can create your own compost, and this creates a complete, healthy, closed loop system. And save your seeds. The vegetables you grow create their own seeds so you can keep growing vegetables for future seasons. Smart gardening practices also include the fact that rabbits are not evil. They want to live just like us. And among other things, they create fertilizer for your garden. In addition to building taller garden beds and fencing, creating a small rabbit-friendly garden away from your garden can keep them away from your personal garden. Rabbits love clover, alfalfa, carrots, beets, radish, lettuce, endive, watercress, arugula, as you probably already know. And if you add some milkweed for the monarch butterflies, sunflowers for the birds, and coneflowers for the bees, and plant tall grasses or make brush piles nearby to provide a safer, more accessible space, this can be your pollinator and rabbit-friendly garden. Other smart gardening practices include adding natural wood mulch to the top layer of your garden. This helps retain moisture, reduces soil temperature fluctuations, and makes your plants more resilient to pests and diseases. And the benefit of watering plants in the early morning will allow them to better deal with the hot sun for the day. The benefit of watering plants in late afternoon or early evening will cut down on evaporation. So I often get this question, when is the best time to water? They both have their benefits. Generally, just make sure the soil is lightly damp so that the plants are at their happiest. And make sure not to water too late in the evening, as damp leaves can encourage fungus. And speaking of fungus, you may have or are experiencing already powdery mildew. And this mildew, unlike other mildews, actually thrives on hot and dry weather. To prevent it, avoid over-fertilizing your plants, avoid overly shady locations, make sure the soil can drain properly, use compost to boost nutrient levels in your soil, and maintain your plants by removing dead or diseased foliage. To treat it, there are many options. One natural way is to use apple cider vinegar at a ratio of 2 teaspoons per 1 quart of water to spray your plant. Square foot gardening is a practice that some of my clients swear by, and it's the space in your garden bed. The concept was created by Mel Bartholomew, and it creates a 1 by 1 foot space throughout your garden bed. And you grow a specific vegetable within your space. So to do it, many people use string to space out the square foot spaces. And there also exists a tool, as you see in the bottom of the screen, made specific for this purpose. With square foot gardening, you can grow per square foot a basil, 9 bush beans, broccoli, 4 chard, 1 corn, 2 cucumbers, 4 to 8 garlics, 9 leeks, 4 lettuce, some muskmelon, an oregano, 4 parsleys, 8 peas, a pepper, a potato, 16 radishes, 36 scallions, and more. And like I was saying before, if you'd like to use this presentation as a guide, it will be available after this webinar. Weed control. Weeds, of course, are a power of nature and serve as an indicator of the health of your soil. For example, thistle is an indicator that your soil needs more acid. On the bottom of the screen, you'll see Canada thistle. So to remedy this, you can achieve soil amendments with ferrous sulfate or aluminum sulfate. And a soil test will indicate how much to apply. Purslane and mustard are an indication of too much phosphorus. Dandelion is an indication of acidic soil. Pigsweed, otherwise known as lamb's quarter, is an indication of an excess of nitrogen. Crabgrass is an indication of just general poor soil fertility. 30% horticulture vinegar is a great way to naturally kill weeds. Keep in mind that common store-bought vinegar is about 10%, and this is not enough to by itself kill weeds. The 30% vinegar can be bought at certain hardware stores as well as online. For what is left, rock salt makes it so no weeds can return. But be careful, because rock salt also makes it so nothing can return. So you want to be very careful where you put this. Beneficial weeds. Weeds are only weeds because we call them that. Many are native and grow naturally in the area, and they provide many unique benefits, including purslane, being a tasty herb that's good in pasta and Indian dishes. It's rich in vitamin A, omega-3 fatty acids, antioxidants, and much more. I used to love putting purslane in my pasta. Pigweeds, young leaves can be eaten raw or sauteed like spinach. Have you heard of amaranth? This is actually pigweed. Mullein is anti-inflammatory and has antiviral and antibacterial properties. And it has many other benefits too. You may be familiar with mullein, which is in the bottom of the screen, and dandelions. From the flower to the roots to the leaves, everything is edible. Dandelions provide antioxidants, boost your immune system, reduce inflammation, and are an excellent source of vitamins A, C, and K, and have many more benefits and nutrients. As a disclaimer, consult your doctor before consuming any of these previous plants that are mentioned. So, some more sustainable gardening practice. Get rid of your water-intensive lawn and xeriscape. You can xeriscape by replacing grass with rocks and mulch. When planting ornamental plants, instead of exotic annuals, plant native, low water-intensive plants that are more water-wise and friendly for pollinators. These plants also save you money. When buying plants, both ornamental and edible, first buy from those who practice organic gardening and which do not spray neonicotinoids to control insects, which also kill beneficial pollinators. And as we are a partner with the Audubon Rockies, we create Audubon certified Habitat Hero Gardens, where we take all of these practices into account and create you a pollinator-friendly garden. So that concludes my presentation, and now it's time for questions. If you'd like to see more information about our services and products, our website is www.earthlovegardens.com, and I'm also available by email at aaron@earthlovegardens.com, and I'm happy to answer any more of your questions, and I will begin with that right now. Let's see, stop this here. So, answering questions. I will answer your questions now.
Hi, Aaron. Sorry about that.
Yeah, how do I do this?
Couldn't unclick. That was so informative, and I've been cranking out questions galore. I think we have about 15 that rolled through, so I've been trying to compile them into different categories.
Excellent.
Yeah, so first off, let me just say thank you so much for that informative presentation. It was very well put together, and I even learned a lot. So thank you so much. All right, question time. One was can you explain how to use the black water bottles? You were mentioning this earlier on when you were constructing the greenhouses. If you could elaborate on what you meant by that and how to actually use them.
Yes. So water bottles during a day, if you fill them with water, they collect heat from the day, and at night they disperse the water. So having them painted black, using a environmentally friendly paint because you don't want that leaching out into your soil, or just having generally black water bottles that are already black, this will help collect even more heat so you'll get the most out of your water bottles. So it acts as a passive heating source to warm your plants during the cool and cold nights.
Gotcha. Thank you for elaborating on that. That makes sense. All right. Question about seed saving, Erin. How much area or number of plants do you need to prevent inbreeding? For example, how far away from related varieties like a squash?
Mhm. So it's generally good to uh, look at what the recommendations are for plant spacing. Make sure to follow this. If you are doing square foot gardening, make sure not to put plants that are susceptible to inbreeding near each other. You want to space those out, and you should have a healthy growing garden.
Thank you. Canadian thistle, oh, bane of our existence, right, in some of our gardens. Any tips on what you can do with the Canadian thistle on removal?
Yes. So before I started Earth Love Gardens, and the way I realized Earth is, well, one of the ways I realized Earth is such a great thing is that I was weeding. And so I have a lot of experience with weeding Canada thistle. The best way to take care of it is to cut it at the root. Don't pull it out, but instead cut it low toward the ground, because the Canada thistle is going to try to fix itself as opposed to creating new roots and new plants. And it's going to spend most of its energy on trying to repair itself. So eventually it'll get tired of doing this with repetition, and then you should see less and less Canada thistle.
All right. Are there certain times to plant from seed that's better than buying your starter plants?
Yes. It's always best to start as naturally as possible. Of course, when you buy starters, there's plastic, and it takes all the energy to go to the store and come back, and it's just generally better to do it yourself. Uh, so things like lettuce and other things that grow well in Colorado will be better to do this. It is better, such as like tomatoes. It's hard to grow those by yourself without a hoop house. So with a hoop house, extending your season, you can grow things that otherwise you would have to transplant or buy, and then you can instead grow from your own seeds.
We're rolling through these. We have a lot of questions. You doing good?
Yes.
Can carrots be left in the ground over winter?
I believe so. When I was living in Louisville, we had a garden, and my housemate showed me that these carrots he didn't even planted that season were still growing from the previous season. So I believe that that will continue everywhere else. So yes, but don't quote me on it. But from my experience, yes, it does work.
Great. Let's see. What might be causing your cucumber leaves to crinkle and then the overall plant to weaken?
Make sure there are different reasons. Uh, Make sure you're properly watering them. Make sure that uh, the soil has the proper nutrients. Make sure no insects are causing these problems. Uh, yes, those are the main three reasons of why plants go wayward instead of being as healthy as they can be.
Gotcha. We talked about Canada thistle already. What about bindweed? Any
Oh
suggestions?
yeah, I knew I was going to get this question. So bindweed is unfortunately impossible to get rid of. Um, but with constant weeding, you can minimize its impact. So pull it whenever you see it. One recommended way to take care of it is like I was talking about, like the Three Sisters concept in growing tall things. If you grow tall plants, the bindweed will wrap around the stem of the plant instead of going horizontal. Instead of planting tall plants, you can also put bamboo in the ground and it'll grow up the bamboo instead of growing horizontally. And generally, when you can, rip it out of the ground and it'll become less and less prominent.
Great. Can you talk a little bit about the soil that you put into your garden boxes and greenhouses?
Yeah, so like I was saying, it's all locally produced. It's organic. It's not USDA organic, as these sources haven't received that certification, but it's made out of all organic materials. It uses a blend of, and we also change the blend based off of where we're planting it, uh, of topsoil and compost, a little bit of loamy soil, and it's all very healthy. And I've used it myself in my own garden and grew very, very well. So I recommend it.
Perfect. I can include in the post-event recap too, Ross Shrigley last week from Plant Select gave a recipe on a good soil mixture as well. So I can include that in the follow-up recap as well. How do you get rid of grass when you're trying to convert a turf grass lawn into an all native garden?
Okay, so there are different ways to do this. Uh, for small spaces, there is a tool that you can. It's like a hoe tool that you hit into the ground, and then it very easily uproots this grass. Um, Another way is with a pickaxe if you have it, uh, and if it's really labor intensive, what I recommend is using the machine that you would rent at a hardware store that purposely uproots sod, and then you have a completely clean slate to make your new environmentally friendly uh, garden and landscape with.
Thanks. I know we've also done the lasagna method where you put the
Mhm.
layering of cardboard and newspaper and soil and repeat. And then the cardboard and newspaper breaks down too. And solarizing as well, putting down tarps. Either there's been a lot of research trying to figure out if the clear or the black tarp works better, but depends on who you ask. But you can also lay that down and secure that with rocks or heavy weights and make sure to leave that there. Kind of similar when you have a slip and slide in your yard, and when you go to remove it, the grass underneath is pretty torched. All right, another question. I have an above ground garden with a screen on top. Will the plants produce even without removing the top?
A screen. They'll produce as long as it's not too shaded or not too hot.
Let's see. Saving seeds. Can you talk about best practices on how to save seeds and start your own plants?
Yeah, there's definitely many different ways. It's good to dry them out. One way is to wrap it in paper towel and put in a little plastic baggie, and then but depending on which plant, there are many different ways. So I would do additional research into this based off of what you are looking to specifically save.
Do you have any tips, Erin, on how to create raised beds where plants already exist? Specifically looking at where tulips and roses and even peach and plum trees may already exist.
Uh, Now, it all depends if you want to keep these or get rid of these existing plants. If you want to get rid of the plants and start fresh, I would uproot these plants as much as possible so that they don't peak up again out of nowhere when you have your raised bed. So do your best at uprooting them. If you are looking to create a garden bed around these plants and want them to keep being alive, then simply make sure that the garden bed that you're putting on top isn't too deep. You know, if you work at about 7 inches instead of say like 14 inches, there's a much higher chance that these plants can continue to grow. And generally just be very careful with these existing plants to make sure there's a high chance of that they will survive.
Getting a few more questions rolling in. Let's see, we just put up a bat house and was wondering if it would be a good idea to start planting some night blooming plants. If so, could you suggest some, like the evening primrose would be a good one?
Yeah, it would. Jamie, do you happen to know any good plants for that?
We love the evening primrose and also Jostneria, the orange carpet. That will bloom late in the afternoon as well.
Okay, good information.
Do you know of other ones?
Yeah, because I've learned that bats aren't usual pollinators for our region. I haven't done much personal research on bats, but I do know they have benefits such as eating insects in your garden.
That is a good point. Yeah, bats can pollinate here in Colorado. We just don't have any specific relationships between bats and certain plants, like how we have in Arizona with the saguaro cactus, which is solely pollinated by bats. But we do have moths. A common one in most of our gardens here in the West is a sphinx moth. Let's see. Can you add your own compost to planting pots?
Yeah, sure. Just make sure it's not too hot and not too rich. Otherwise, you can over fertilize essentially your plants, and then they won't grow. So you want to have the proper balance of compost and soil. And it's also good to do your research on what you are planting. What is the happiest balance of compost and soil so that they do their best.
Earlier in your presentation, you mentioned that purslane and mustard are an indication of too much phosphorus in your soil. How do you balance that out?
Ways to balance phosphorus are, let me look at my notes real quick. I had this note. I don't see it right now, but I would do a search to see the different ways, and they work because I've done it before, and this will help retain a healthier balance to grow less purslane and mustard and more of what you want to grow.
Gotcha. If you want, you could send over, when you send over your presentation in the PDF, you could maybe provide some information or links. That would be great for that follow-up question. I could include that in the recap email as well.
Will do.
How far do you travel to consult? Someone's asking who lives in Black Forest, which is north of Colorado Springs.
We will travel. So generally we work around the Boulder, Denver metro area, and we can travel to further areas. So if you reach out to me, we can talk about a consultation and create what you're looking for, even if it's as simple as answering some questions.
But you typically do the Front Range or the I-25 corridor, right?
Right. And I will travel. Just reach out to me on earthlovegardens.com or my email, aaron@earthlovegardens.com, and I'll be happy to answer questions and work on scheduling for a consultation.
We'll do 2 more questions and then we'll start moving on to our next section. Here's one. How can you get rid of stumps and shrubs that have been cut down to the ground? They seem to continue to produce suckers.
One way, so for example, juniper. Uh, the best way I've found is with a truck, because these are very well rooted. And if you tie it to the back of a truck bed and pull it out, it's very hard work. Uh, as far as a other method, Jamie, do you happen to know of a thing you can put down that would just kill the trunk of a tree without hard work associated with it?
I don't. Again, I will look into that, and I can include that in the recap email, though. Let me take
Yeah.
some. All right, one more question, Erin, and then we'll start switching gears. So with our partnership with Audubon Rockies, you have the Audubon certified gardens. Can you explain what those gardens include and what the process would be for someone to use your services to get a certified Habitat Hero garden?
Yes. So a Habitat Hero garden includes a understory, midstory, and overstory. So you get perennial plants and shrubs and trees. You get a nest box, a bird house, a water feature. Invasive plants are removed. And with this, you get the Audubon Habitat Hero sign for your garden, as well as a subscription to the Audubon magazine and other perks. And the way it works is if you reach out to me after the webinar, we can do a consultation, and either I or one of our landscaping partners throughout the region will, and they're very knowledgeable, everyone loves what they do, will work with you on your garden and or landscape to find the best solution to change a otherwise not environmentally friendly landscape to something that's very beautiful and functional and generally just very amazing.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for taking the hot seat and answering all of those tough questions. I know we had a lot of them today, which is great. You had a wonderful presentation. It was very informative, and I look forward to sending that out with some detailed information on some of those topics that we discussed that we'll look more into as well. Some reputable resources. And then I'm going to share my screen as well, and I'll share with you some upcoming presentations, and also I have your contact information up on the screen too, Erin, so I will share that with everyone, as we got a few people asking on how to contact you. So next week, June 25th, we have a special presentation. It is going to be with our Executive Director, Allison Holleran, and one of our educators, Zach Hutchinson. And it's just gonna be an open format where it's a chance for you to meet Allison and Zach and ask questions about what we do at Audubon Rockies and questions about birds that you might have. So it'll be a fun, very informal presentation. And we are lining up some July and August programs as well. In fact, another one that I'd recommend looking at on our website, rockies.audubon.org/events. Last night, we just did a virtual birding in Mount Zion National Park. So we're also including some previous recordings on that page as well. So stay tuned for upcoming programs, and also you can go back through the archives and see some previous recordings as well. And then as mentioned, here's the contact information. On the left is my email, phone, and web address. I put my cell phone up there. Right now we're still working from home, so that's the best way to contact me via phone. And then on the right, I've put Aaron's contact information with both an email and his web address, which is earthlovegardens.com. Let's see, it looks like I got one more chat. Let me look at that before we conclude today. There we go. All right. Well, with that, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us. It's a really great opportunity to learn about gardening and invite local partners and speakers to join us on and provide information on their topics that is so near and dear to them. I also enjoy seeing some of your faces week to week. And again, just appreciate you joining us. The birds and the pollinators need your help and couldn't do it without all of your support and passion. So we want to thank you for all the work that you do in our community. So with that, just want to say thanks again for joining us. And Erin, if you have any parting words as well.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Jamie. And I'd love to speak with you after the webinar and create more environmentally friendly gardens.
Wonderful. Well, you take care. All enjoy your weekend.